Maeve.
Hey, Maeve.
She says, take a breath, Kato.
I took a breath. I'm fine. You take a breath, Maeve. Ah! I mean, hi, sweetheart. You look lovely tonight.
Why do I look like that?
Hey, everybody. Wow, I'm out of practice, huh?
Okay, do you like the angles?
Yeah, the angles are good.
Gotta go
Is
crouch.
there too much of the other room?
Too much leg.
What?
Too much leg.
Oh, I'm doing my legs. All right, give me some update. Hi, everybody. Sorry about the technical issues. Can we get just a quick check on Facebook to see that we're working? We can't check Instagram while we're live, I guess.
Uh-oh.
What?
It just said no internet connection. I have to log back in.
Oh. Rough start. Oh, wait, someone's saying something. McKenna says hi. Hey, McKenna. Thanks.
I'm trying.
I'll follow you back as soon as I'm done here, McKenna.
That's his code word for nope.
No, I get all this crap from some because I follow everybody back. It's like, no, that's not how you do it.
You gotta make it a little more elusive.
I'm not elusive. there's nothing elusive about me.
Okay, click to me. Okay.
All right?
Yes.
Okay. How are we looking?
You looking old.
No, not me. I mean, how are we looking? That was funny.
I usually am. You're looking good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope everybody's doing well. We are live on Instagram and Facebook. We're going to shoot the breeze for a minute here. I'm already getting hot. Just to let some people arrive late, even though they don't have to travel, but you know how this goes. If you want to grab a drink and let us know what you're having, we'd love to hear from you. I think I saw Deandra come up before. Hi, Deandra. I'm having something that I'll share with you in a minute. It's not what you think it is. Mystery. It's mystery night. Stop giving me that look, so. You know what one of the problems I'm having? Every week we do this, I cannot get comfortable on this stool. It's like really hard to sort of find no one cares. At least no one in this room cares. Anyone out there in the world care? Is anyone sharing what they're having? Are you working here or what?
No one's saying anything.
No one's having anything?
No one's saying anything about what they're drinking so far. Oh, I'm gonna butcher this. Valiscott?
That's Deandra. Valiscott, yeah, Deandra.
She said, yup, I'm here.
Good. How are you? I'm glad you can come to this, but not to our class meeting she missed last time.
Oh, God.
You're forgiven, kiddo. School's over.
What?
I'm still calling them back for meetings in the summertime. I don't know.
Joe Spallone
I need the company.
Mezcal Mule.
Oh, wow. I got a Joe Spallone joke for later. Don't be mad at me.
Dorothy DiMarzo said seltzer.
Seltzer?
Lisa's here.
Lisa, did you say? Your present?
Yeah, Val Scott said, LMAO, I will be there.
All right.
I promise I got so much to talk about.
Oh, good. Good. You know what LMAO means? So.
You're asking me?
I'm done with the kids.
Nah, I have no clue.
I wish I knew what they were saying on Instagram. Oh, we're doing well. 17 people.
Well, how?
Miss Melissa Bellini, hey. Americanos today. All right. Oh, hey, Liam.
Do you want me to sit
Cool.
here?
We're the quarantine Burns and Allen. Moscow Mule. Who's having that? Landon. Hey, man. Nice call. Hey, Cara DeFalco. I'm waving, like literally waving, like like my first Zoom meeting when they're saying put your hand up in the air. If you raise your hand if you want to ask a question, I'm like going.
Val Scott, what's her name?
Deandra.
Deandra said, Bella told you how buzz cut must have grew. OMG, I missed it.
Hey, Jesus, how are you? Good, glad you're here. Yeah, this is my Corona cut. I don't know if you remember if you were at the last couple of readings I had with Cucina Tipica. My hair was going like this, and it was like, practically like Julius Erving, 1976, sorry. So I cut it myself, and it looked awful, just awful. There was like patches on the side, and like it was just a disaster. So it's kind of come back in. I guess it's going to be a disaster no matter what I do. Yes, Kara, my daughter helps me with tech, and she's like my foil as well at the same time. Is anyone sharing what they're drinking? You still? Yeah. Are you employing your kids? Yeah, I am. Hey, Meredith.
No, he's not.
I'm not employing her. I feed you. I mean, she meant my employing as my using you for help. Yeah, she's great fun. Actually, Sophia's been killing me this whole quarantine. She's really been making it quite enjoyable. Just a couple more minutes and I'll get started. We'll be done tonight, probably 6:45. Just some short passages and nice conversation. Maeve, I'm having Gabrielle Hamilton's Virgin. Oh, good. That sounds like fun. We just met, New York producer. How are you? You're friends with Victoria, I think, right? Cool. And I'm going to talk about Victoria Greinoff later, and also my other new friend, Roberto Cernini. There's a little friendship segment at the very end. It won't be long. I'm not going to sing. That's what friends are for, unless you want me to, so. I wish you had a camera on Soph too, like up in the corner to get her expressions. They're really just so touching to me. Yeah. So if it's your first time coming to one of these events, I did a bunch of them at the end of March and then through April regarding food scenes from Cucina Tipica and Italian Adventure. I did this inspired by my cousin Thomas Giuliano and his girlfriend Amy Fairchild, who are musicians in Boston who are having gigs in their apartment during their quarantine. And it just struck me as something that could be of value, to get people together, to have something in common for a little while, to feel like community. And I wanted to center my readings around food. I don't work in the food industry, but I read about food a lot through my journalism, and food always seems to find its way into my novels. So I began with this series with Cucina Tipica and Italian Adventure, because food's like the star of that book. Food in Italy are really what that book's about. And we did 4 weeks of that, and it was really fun. 1 week I went way too far, but other than that, I considered it a success. I took a couple weeks off just to, I don't know, do nothing. But I wanted to return and try it again with another book of mine. My second book is a noir. It's called Outerborough Blues, A Brooklyn Mystery. It was the thesis for my MFA, my Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing from the New School. And it was published, and I wanted to use this book as the next in our series of food fiction because the protagonist is a chef. It's a noir, sort of a literary mystery, but the main character is sort of a reticent soul. He's a runaway, a drifter of sorts, and food is a means by which he makes a living, but also how he communicates. So food plays a really big role in this story as well. The book was just translated into Italian last year by my friends at Iona Editore in Torino, and it has a sequel called Black Irish Blues, which is coming out this year. So there's a nice sort of segue here from this book to something that hopefully we'll be doing together late in the fall. If we can't get together then, I'm going to hold off on the party until we can get together. We're going to have a big party for the release of the sequel to this called Black Irish Blues, which I'm really proud of. It'll be published by the same company that published Cucina Tipica. So I'm excited, and I wanted to sort of bring this one back into the fold. The story in a nutshell is about this character named Caesar Stiles. He is from a cursed Sicilian family of also Irish descent. He's half Irish, half Sicilian. There's a curse on the Sicilian side, sort of devastates his family as he's growing up in the areas of northern New Jersey, just over the George Washington Bridge. He runs away at age 15 not by choice, but by necessity, and he ends up sort of rambling around America for 10 years. He returns to his hometown when his mother is on her deathbed. She asks him to sort of end the family curse. He goes to Brooklyn to sort of settle and try and find a home for himself, which his mother believes will be the cure to be the remedy to their family curse. It's Brooklyn in the early 90s. He settles in a neighborhood that isn't named, but it's very much Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, predominantly African-American neighborhood, where he is employed at a place called The Notch, which is a soul food restaurant where he tends bar and does all the cooking and also curates the menu. He's sort of an outsider there for sure. His boss is a guy named the Captain, who is not only the boss of the restaurant, but sort of the neighborhood boss as well. The story takes place over the course of 7 days. These are the 7 days preceding Easter. Within the course of those 7 days, there are flashbacks to his time on the road, stops in Pittsburgh and Iowa and Denver and Louisiana and around the American South, and then back home to New Jersey. There's also dream sequences where we sort of get an insight into what the character's feeling at the time. The mystery of the book is, it's not a whodunit. It's really, I'm using a trope of a missing person. There's an art institute nearby the neighborhood in Brooklyn where he lives, which is obviously a fictionalized version of Pratt Institute, if you're familiar at all with New York. And the art student is from France. His sister comes over and is looking for anyone to help her find him, because she knows he's missing, even though he's not technically missing at this point. And Caesar finds himself sort of immersed in this mystery, thinking that if he can find a way to help this displaced person to find her brother, it might help end his family struggles. So I'm going to begin with a scene from the very beginning of the book, where Caesar is at work at the Notch. And then I'll give each little subsequent segment, there'll be 4 total, the same sort of setup. Dinner at the Notch that night, like so many nights, was like a planned party. Work attire was relaxed by loosened collars and sleeves rolled to the elbow. Hair came down and skin was exposed by buttons open to air. Hats stayed on. Drinks flowed and a steady hum hovered above the tables. An occasional burst of laughter cut through the clamor and smoke, circled the ceiling, and escaped out the door. A jump record spun as Louis Jordan, with his horns and rhythm, stomped high-energy blues through the speakers. From my coop of a kitchen up the stairs, I pumped out plates and stole glances at the scene below. The captain, at a table by the front window, watched the room move all through the night. During a pause in the dinner rush, I took a smoke out on the sidewalk and watched the sky above the carved cornices turn midnight blue. Returning through the restaurant, I was called by the church ladies to their regular table in the middle of the room. "Young man! Young man!" the woman at the head cried. A silk dashiki covered her shoulders, and matching blue material wrapped her head. Her long brown fingers held my wrist. "Young man," she said with sturdy warmth, "please tell us how you do what you do with this food." The reverend from the local Baptist church and her deacons had been coming in once a week since I had started working there. They were a joyous and dignified group, and their order was always the same: 6 of anything. The menu that I created was a blend of Italian traditions and the American South. They liked that, and they liked it more when I ran down each plate that night. Pollo frito, a take on fried chicken, sizzled in olive oil. Southern-style mac and cheese, reimagined as quattro formaggi, a 3-cheese combo of coated pasta crusted with Parmesan. There was paposa, my version of meatloaf, a ground meat mixture thick with tomato paste, onions, and garlic, with slabs of bacon on top. The women laughed and nudged each other as I spoke of the ribs being rubbed with spices and slow roasted and glazed with a balsamic reduction. "I'm not sharing these," the deacon sitting in front of that dish declared. In place of ham hocks was cotechino, the shin of the pig deboned and stuffed with sausage, herbs, and bread, sliced wide and layered over lentils. "Stop!" someone begged. The women were now falling over themselves, about ready to burst. Finally, the reverend had that night's special: fried lamb chops with a dollop of anchovy sauce on the side. She testified, as heads bobbed down and back up again. "Thank you, young man," she said kindly. "Thank you for everything." Then the church ladies held hands above the table, forming a circle. And when they bowed their heads to pray, I walked away, even though I would have loved to have joined them. So that's sort of a sense of what Caesar's work environment is like, where he very much wants to be a part of it, but it is still sort of removed. This next scene is a flashback. Again, the 7 days, the 7 chapters are all interspersed with dream sequences and flashbacks. This flashback is to when Caesar first ran away from home. His initial stop was Pittsburgh. He hopped a train in New Jersey and rattled all the way to Pittsburgh, and hopped off there and was having a really hard time. He was living under a bridge. He was getting beat up in his sleep. And so one day he was rummaging through the back of a diner's garbage to find some food, and the owner of the diner sort of dragged him inside and threw him an apron and put him to work. where he was befriended by these two brothers from Dominican Republic. The diner where I worked was open 24 hours a day and was manned by a mash of immigrants. The menu was thick as a phone book, and on any given day, at any given time, you could have a row of 6 line cooks from 6 continents cranking out food from 6 countries. From these men, I would learn how to fry and saute, roast and braise, as well as how to mix seasonings and make marinades and brines. I observed that despite their country of origin, many recipes contain the same basic ingredients and the same basic techniques. The dishwashers and maintenance crews added to the jumble of languages and hues. The waitresses were all Korean schoolgirls who called the owner Uncle. Uncle was a wrinkled and stooped Korean man of about 50. He wore cardigan sweaters and khakis, and a pair of reading glasses hung from his neck on a metal chain. A buzzsaw of sound and motion, he did most of his talking with his hands and kept them flailing on his endless rounds through the diner. Sometimes he would grab a cleaver or a mop from an employee to demonstrate exactly what he wanted. I worked roughly 70 hours a week and had every other Sunday off. Every other Saturday night, the Dominican brothers would take me to a barber shop on the hill that was closed on the street side and open around back. Inside, men and women, all various shades of brown, crammed into a back room lined with card tables. Food in foil, roasted pork, beans and rice, fried platanos and mashed yuca steamed on every table. In the corner was a metal garbage can filled with green beer bottles, floating in ice beside a table with a bottle of Rugal and small paper cups. From their billfolds, the men pulled worn pictures of skinny children, barefoot and barely dressed, their families back home. They chased their stories of longing with shots of rum and hand-rolled cigarettes. The women around them were in high demand. After tending to the food, they swung their bodies through the room and took partners toward the music up front in the barbershop. These women called me Junior and treated me like a child, pinching my cheeks and giving me plates piled with food. I'd usually stay in back with the men, listening to arguments in Spanish about baseball and politics. Late in the evening, after the crowd had thinned, I'd go up front, sit in a barber chair, dizzy from drink and full of food, and watch couples move in a way that was beyond comprehension. There was order, but also instinct. The women shook their shoulders and kept time with their soft bellies and swinging bell asses, their smooth brown skin reflecting the barber's bright light, while the men never hid their compulsions, but managed to stay composed. Sometimes when the smoke was thick and my head thicker, it would seem like they were floating. Even after falling asleep, I could still feel the rumba of the music. At some point near morning, the younger brother would find me sprawled across a barber's chair. "Muchacho," he'd say, his face smiling and alive, his shirt unbuttoned and ruffled. "It's time to go." We'd then walk home through the dark and empty streets, eating loaves of still warm bread just delivered to restaurant vestibules as spots of light appeared in the early dawn. That sequence there ends with Caesar back in Brooklyn and is followed by a dream. I'll just show you one small dream sequence, even though it's devoid of food. I dreamed of Carmen in the moonlight of the bayou. She ran through curtains of moss toward a smoky light before vanishing behind gum trees. I could hear her breath but not find her face. Then she giggled and trampled the undergrowth. Through the smell of night-blooming flowers, we raced toward the fake light of dawn and a horizon swimming with starlings. But in the clearing, there was no Carmen, only sawgrass and fish heads and dead cypress trunks, and me, alone on the banks of the bayou, brown water rising above my shoes. I woke up soaked in sweat, sensing that disparate elements around me were about to collide. And they were. This next section, 3 of the 4 that I will read for you today, before we get to the food behind me, is the actual mystery in progress. So again, the mystery, if you recall, is Caesar unfamiliar with the terrain of Brooklyn, but trying to find someone. That someone is a missing art student from France, and what he does, one of his initial attempts at investigation is go to the Art Institute, where the student is supposed to be attending class. Half a block down, I hopped the fence and folded into campus, searching. The registrar's office respected their students' confidentiality. The bursar's office wanted my name. In the library, I read a detective story and peered around the room between passages. At the crossroads of the quad, I smoked cigarettes and asked every student that passed if they knew Jean-Baptiste René. If the French kid went to school here, no one knew him. A dreary girl came clomping along, black-clad from neck to boots, rubber-soled and languid like a contestant in a Tim Burton beauty contest. Hearing my inquiry, she deftly shifted direction without slowing her step. I watched, and when she looked back ever so slightly over her shoulder after a dozen yards, I trailed her towards the security gate and the behemoth on guard. "Catch you later," I said as I strode by the guard, not bothering to wait for his reaction. Following the girl from the other side of the street, we walked in the direction from which I'd come. After a string of blocks with cracked sidewalks and public housing playgrounds, she crossed Myrtle Avenue against the light and slipped into a Mexican dive. I followed her in. My eyes took a second to adjust to the dark room. I crossed the mottled floor and sat down at a counter that faced the kitchen next to two Mexicans who drank beer from bottles and didn't speak to each other. The room smelled of chorizo and eggs and warm tortilla. A ceiling fan turned the greasy air. The jukebox in the front corner was quiet, and somewhere a customer ranted about some professor named Hammersley being a douchebag and a sellout. A wonderfully fat waitress came around the counter, holding a tray balanced with beer bottles and beveled shot glasses filled with gold liquid. Her dark hair led me to a booth along a putty-colored wall strung with chili pepper lights. 4 art-funky students crowded the table, 3 skinny dudes dressed up like derelicts, and the black-clad girl whom I had followed. After the waitress left, I stepped into the space she had occupied. "And how are you?" I said to the girl. She rolled her eyes and looked away. "I saw you over by campus before, remember?" "No," she answered with indifference, her eyes now on one of the boys across the table. "Who the hell are you?" he asked me as if I was an unwanted admirer. He'd been the one bad-mouthing the professor. He wore a vintage t-shirt and a leather wristband and was small to medium size, even with his head held high and his hair in a junior brassy pompadour. The other 2 boys, who were both Asian, forked plates of runny food and hid behind their jet black bangs. I kept my eyes on the girl. "I'm looking for Jean-Baptiste Rene. You know him?" "JB?" the one with the mouth asked. "What do you want with JB?" "JB, I said to the girl. "You know him?" "No." "Who the hell are you?" the mouth demanded again, his voice rising. To the girl, I said, "I'm a friend of the family, and they're worried about him, that's all. You know where he might be?" "He doesn't have a family," the guy cried. "He's from France, you ridiculous fuck." I pulled up a chair and flipped my smokes on the table. As the waitress passed, I ordered a beer. "His sister's here, at his place, but he's not around. Where's he been?" The girl tilted her head down and said, "Get the fuck away from me." I asked her again if she knew where Jean-Baptiste was. She licked her cracked lips and turned her face toward the wall. Her friend smacked his thighs and seethed at the ceiling. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded for the 3rd time, pounding the table. The silverware shivered, but I didn't move. I figured one more question would get me an answer. Instead, it got me a tequila shot in the face. The girl's cackle, shrill and violent, stung my ears as I blinked through the burning liquid. Raw anger rose up inside me, and I responded by scooping up the nearest knife and pinning it behind the big mouth's ear. I clamped the other side of his face in my grip. He went stiff and lost track of his breath. A hush fell from the ceiling. I smelled sweat. There was no sound except for the girl giggling into her chest. The waitress hurried my beer to the table and vanished. I held the knife against the boy's ear cartilage, testing it against his flesh, now calm enough to wish that I'd walked away. "Listen," I said to her, "tell me something, anything about Jean-Baptiste Rene, and I'll be gone." A fly buzzed my ear. A fork hit the floor. The kitchen staff came out into the dining room. The girl laughed and stared into my eyes. "He's 8 feet tall, with purple teeth and 3 cocks." Flesh trembled against my blade. I clenched the boy's ear with my thumb. "Cut him," she dared. Her voice had gone husky. I held her stare and waited. "Cut him," she repeated, a hint of flirtation in her tone. "I want you to." Her breath had picked up. I felt the boy quiver into the blade. He had a thin pink face and pork-chop sideburns. His blue-green eyes, now filled with tears, looked like swimming pools. I pulled away and left. I pulled away. The girl laughed up a riot, which followed me out the door. Out on the avenue, with tequila in my eye and egg on my face, the brilliant sunlight made it hard to see. Still, I now knew this much. The Frenchman existed, so Colette was for real. However, I didn't feel relief. Based on the company he kept, the missing brother of Colette could be into something serious, something I should have wanted no part of. And here we get to the last section. This is when Colette, the sister from France, you know, the femme fatale, if you're into tropes like I am, approaches Caesar at home. He just had spent the day another day looking for this person, running into some trouble in his neighborhood with some kids from the neighborhood who might be selling drugs or some other people. He's offended, so it's not going well for him in his attempt at being a detective. I lit a smoke and closed my eyes. The breeze picked up and brushed the hair off my neck. I remember being a kid beside the tracks when a train whizzed by. Sorrow swarmed over me and spread through my cabbie like dye. A rustling by the gate opened my eyes. Bonsoir, Niçois, Colette whispered. Something? She asked. She had on a rumpled country skirt and a thin white top, ragged sandals held by her side. I shook my head and patted the stoop. She sat below me and leaned into my leg. Her dark hair dangled on my thigh. She held up 2 fingers in a lonesome manner. We smoked in silence, trading drags, our hands touching briefly each time. Energy shifted between us, but it was a sad energy, like we were waiting for things that we knew would never come. I took the last drag, flicked the cigarette into the street, and motioned with my head toward the house. Our footsteps echoed as we walked across my empty parlor toward the kitchen, leaving dirty prints behind on the hardwood floor. The kitchen was open, sparse and clean, with a single stool next to a large island. I had no table. From an overhead light above the island, white lights spread on the granite counters and slate floors. Next to a basin sink, a stainless steel fridge hummed. The beach cupboards were empty except for a bottle of honey, a bottle of whiskey, and some bottles of wine. Colette sat on the island, her filthy feet dangling in the air. You break a strap? I asked, taking the bottle of honey and a bottle of Chianti out of the pantry and placing them on the island. Oof, she shrugged. I take them off. At home, en France, I live in the country, and it's not bad for me to walk with no shoes. So I think to try it here, and maybe I feel more like home. And how'd that go? I asked. No good, she said, sagging into herself, looking towards the blackened window and back. Across the fence, a neighbor's security light glowed orange. Low music played from somewhere. Hungry? I asked. She widened her eyes. Yes. I went over and opened the fridge. Inside was a stick of salami, a bowl of mixed olives, a jar of Italian peppers, and a nice hunk of gorgonzola wrapped in plastic. I pulled the baguette from the freezer, placed it in the oven, opened the bottle of wine, and filled 2 glasses. Next to Colette's hip on the wooden island top, I sliced the salami and piled it with peppers on a plate. I placed it beside the bowl of olives. We ate with our hands and washed the food down with wine. When we stopped for a breath, I refilled our glasses and removed the olive pits we'd left on the counter. When the bread was warm, I took it out of the oven, sliced it in half lengthwise, and spread the pungent gorgonzola across the white loaves. Colette breathed through her nose and parted her lips. When she reached for a piece, I smacked her hand away. I then held the honey bottle high and let the golden liquid seep over the cheese. She moaned with her first bite. We ate slowly, the honey blending with the strong cheese to create a salty and sweet sensation in our mouths. I refilled our wine glasses again and again and again, and we alternated slices and sips until the food and wine were gone. As I relaxed on the stool, Colette brushed a strand of my hair to the side of my face. I took her long calf in my hand and lifted it to study her foot. I then went to the sink and returned with a warm washcloth and moved the stool between her legs. I wiped the soles of her feet, and then the space between her toes, the top of her foot, her ankles and heel. She leaned back on her hands. I then wiped her calves and the back of her knees. She tucked her skirt around her hips as I cleaned her lean thighs. Her breath increased, and when I arrived at her hips, she leaned back on her forearms, dunked her head, and moaned at the ceiling. I peeled off her panties and left them on the counter with the crumbs. I'll leave the rest up to you. So those, how's the time? So good. So those are the passages. Obviously, it's not as dense as Outerborough, as Cucina Tipica with food scenes, but the food really functions as an important narrative device in this story as well. And I have just as many scenes left for next Saturday, if you'd be so kind as to join me again, including one last scene that's sort of reminiscent of that scene from Big Night, if you ever saw that movie with Stanley Tucci, where there's just Caesar cooks up this crazy meal at the Notch for the night before Easter. And it's like the big party night for the whole neighborhood. And he just does an amazing job of many, many courses of Creole food, which he learned while he was in one of the places he goes, which is Louisiana. If I ever do write another addition to this series, which I plan on, it will be set in Louisiana with that woman named Carmen, who was referenced in that dream sequence of his. She was the love of his life. Hope you enjoyed that. Let's talk food. Oh, I didn't tell you my drink, okay? So you're looking at it, you think I'm having a Negroni, right? And I understand, I was having them in previous weeks. I have them quite often. I have a Negroni tattoo. I don't, but I should think about it. I don't like gin. I mean, Negroni, gin is a key component in Negronis, and I drink them anyway. But I decided to put my favorite clear liquor in there, which is vodka. So this is I'm calling a me-groni. Get it? Me-groni, not me, so? Anyway, so this is vodka, Campari, and sweet vermouth. And I gotta say, sorry, I'm still gonna drink it. Okay, so what we have here is some food. I mentioned earlier that I was going to tell you a little narrative about friendship. One of the really interesting things about this experience with the quarantine and all everything else going on here is that, you know, I've been able to enhance a lot of friendships. You know, people I know from work, people I know from the neighborhood. I'm also meeting lots of people that I didn't know before because we're home and we're sort of, you know, pursuing our interests. And of late, I've met a couple of really interesting people, right? One is Victoria. I'm going to show you her information here. It's so funky. This is Victoria Granoff. She's a food designer and a director of things regarding food, and obviously a very talented chef. My friend, Big Joe Spallone, who I was talking about before, sent me a chickpea recipe. There was a chickpea sequence from the Cucina Tipica. My friend watching Cara DeFalco made an episode of her show dedicated to chickpeas based on that. And my friend Joe sent me a recipe. I looked up the chef, Victoria. I wrote to her. She wrote me back. Minutes later, it turns out we're neighbors in Brooklyn. I swapped her a copy of Cucina Tipica for some delicious biscotti she was making in a classic quarantine fashion. I dropped the book in her box and at her home in Brooklyn, and waiting there for me were the cookies. Right? And we've been communicating through Instagram and via emails, thank you. My Negroni's getting to me. And we've had a beautiful friendship launched from it. I made her famous pasta dish, which is at Food 52, the website. I'll give you the address in a second through my use of technology. But it's an amazing chickpea dish in that I can't use both ones at one time. I'll show you though. Can we see this?
Do you want some help?
Come with me, yeah. Where we just turn the camera around now too, right? So we can see what we're looking at. Okay. Hold on, folks.
I don't really know how to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
It's on you.
How do I do it? Well, we're wrong. All right, now it's gonna go old school. Okay, so here's the pasta. Here's the dish, right? It's a spectacular dish of chickpeas and pasta and tomato paste. You basically put garlic in the bottom of a pan with olive oil. Before the garlic browns, of course, you mix in tomato paste. Then you add in chickpeas, drained and rinsed, and some small cut pasta. Is it looking good, right? And then 2 cups of boiling water, and the pasta cooks down in the boiling water, and it's spectacular. I made it as a variation, and Victoria was pissed. She thought, you fucking asshole, this is why we have recipes for you to follow, moron. So this time I followed it perfectly, and I'm really thrilled that I did. My next dish is from another friendship. I met a guy named Roberto Sorini, who's a filmmaker here in Brooklyn. Where's this one? Oh yeah, these are cutlets.
It's not on the chicken, Dad.
Yes, it is.
No, it's
Is it so?
There you go.
There you go. Classic chicken cutlets. Roberto is made a documentary. The documentary is called Italy in Bocca, which is a film about these cookbooks that him and his buddy Peter found that are these cardboard-bound cookbooks from Italy, from all 20 regions of Italy. Right?
Talk to both of them.
I'm sorry?
Talk to both of them.
Oh, sorry. Hi, you phone. That phone cost me so much money. They're trying to raise funds for the folks in Italy who are suffering through all the things that we are suffering through as well. The film can be found at Roberto's website, which is robertosorini.com. And it's called Italy in Bocca. It's an incredible film. And in the film itself, they make a meal the night before the quarantine. So then they find 4 recipes from the book, right? And they have like a big night themselves. And they make these 4 dishes, and one of them is just a pork cutlet, a classic pork cutlet. I made chicken cutlets as an alternative, because all I had was chicken, and we know when we cook with what we have. And it was really spectacular. Let's put this back down. It was really just a great sort of celebration, and I wanted to make you guys aware of this this film and these people. And if you want to get in touch with them, I used my technology. I was gonna get all modern.
It's definitely backwards for
Oh
them.
yeah, right.
Oh no, Instagram is definitely gonna
Mine's
be
not
backwards.
backwards. Anyway, I'll tell you how to do that. Italy in Boca. RobertoSerini.com. Roberto is easy to spell, no dots, SERRINI.com. Victoria, you can find her, right, at VictoriaGranoff.com. And you can find this recipe of the pasta con ceci. Ceci is chickpea in Italian. It's a perfectly vegetarian dish at Food 52 website. Let's go to Food 52. Now, if you're wondering why I'm limping, and you're wondering why I'm talking about my buddy Big Joe Spallone, it's because I did a class this morning. I've been exercising. It's been keeping me sane with my friend Melina Mackel. She's a personal trainer. She's unbelievably fit and a great instructor, and she's doing classes now on Zoom. The class almost killed me. Big Joe was crying halfway through, I believe, right? And she's running this class. You want to get in touch with Melina and sign up for one of her classes, or even ask her to do a certain time, or with your friends. She's so flexible. She's just an amazing person, right? It's Melina Mackel at mac.com. Melina, M-E-L-I-N-A, Mackel, M-A-C-K-A-L-L, at mac.com, right? Look at the technology. Look at the use of what's available in the world today. I think that's about a wrap, right? I'm gonna eat that pasta with my wife, and then the whole family's gonna have the chicken cutlets. We're gonna drink some beautiful red wine from Tuscany, and I'm gonna send out an invite midway through the week to next Saturday's reading. We'll do some more, and I'll try to be a little bit more production savvy. Actually, I probably won't.
No.
But I do wish you all well. My point about friendship is an important one. These are really difficult times for all of us. I know I'm having good days and bad days, and good hours and bad hours, and good readings and bad readings. It's really hard, and I'm glad to connect with people. I'm glad that we're looking out for each other, and I so look forward to seeing you when this is over. I know that my perspective on the importance of people in my life will never be the same, and I hope that we will come out of this in some way, shape, or form with a bigger appreciation of things, culture and friendship and family, that really matter. Okay. I wish you good night and good week, and I'll talk to you soon. Oh, so it says, did I say hi to Sophie yet?
No.
Oh, Sophie!
Hi. Ow! I'm gonna end your live for you. And okay. I assume you want this to share on your story.
Sure. How do I stop this? Every fucking week.